I'm going to revisit this letter to the Subiaco Post, which described the Forrest St shared path as crumbling along its entire length. Now, I disagree with that assessment. To me, this is cracking and crumbling. You can see quite obviously that there's a heck of a lot of cracks and they're quite deep. And this is possibly the worst example of a cracked path. But is that in fact a shared path? No, that's in fact a road, which is really, really cracked up. This is easily the worst example of cracking I could find. And you can definitely see what happens when an asphalt surface starts to fall apart under heavy rain and lots of vehicle traffic. Not good at all. However, you do have to ask a question, is that actually rough to ride on? Well, usually the answer is no. What is rough to ride on is lumps in the road like it's cracked here. And what's causing that? A dirty great big gum tree, of course. It's the roots growing across the road. There's been a lot of rain in Perth recently, and some flooding in quite a few areas. So that might be contributing to path issues. Now, I'm riding along here at about 25 kilometres an hour, maybe a bit faster. And if you look at the path, you should see some cracks running crossways, as well as some areas where it's quite crumbly. And this is an old path. And it was so crumbly, I thought, I'm actually going to pull over and take some video of this just to show that when you're riding from the front or rear camera, you can really, even at 25 kilometres an hour, at a reasonable clip, cracking and crumbling is really obvious. I mean, it's just plain as day in front of you. You don't even need to be wearing glasses to see that sort of crumbling over on the left there. And I rode up Forrest St at about half this pace or less, and I couldn't see cracking or crumbling like this. Now, what I've had to do is change the saturation on this video to make it stand out more, because it was quite a dark and wet day when I went out. But again here, if you look across on the left, you can see evidence of cracking. And I think that's because this is built across a swamp, and the foundations are simply subsiding into the soggy ground. And I don't think we should be terribly surprised about that, particularly with all the flooding we've had lately. And the cracks here must have been here for a while, because some of them have got grass growing up through them, which really doesn't help either. I mean, once that grass gets into the cracks, it's just going to widen them, and this path is really going to fall to bits in a couple of years, I'd say. But what you should be able to see here is the cracking is totally obvious, both front and rear. I mean, look at that. It's just plain as day. There's a lot of cracking there. And again, I come back to the point of when I rode up Forrest St much, much more slowly than this kind of cracking was not evident. What about crumbling? No, I didn't really see crumbling either. I mean, I've seen plenty of crumbled path, and this wasn't it. Now, that's obviously some tree root damage. And again, that is quite obvious. That stands out. And whoops, the only time you can't see the path is when you go through a puddle. Now we're going up towards Leederville now from the city, and you can see there's a lot of patching has been done on the path here. There's a lot of black asphalt snakes that have been put down into the cracks. And yeah, this path again, it's old and not in great condition. But anyway, here's Forrest St, and look at how slowly I'm riding. I'm just crawling up the hill a little bit faster than walking pace. And look, sure, there's a patch, but paths get patched when they get dug up for putting in new pipes and things like that. And I'm looking, and I'm just not seeing the crumbling. The only cracking I'm seeing is over there where vehicles driving in and out of that site have been driven across the path, and as they've gone over the edge of the path, it's cracked, which is obviously going to happen under load if you've got heavily loaded work vehicles going in and out of the site. But it's the same camera, and I've used the same saturation settings, and I'm not seeing the crumbling that we saw on all those other paths. It's just not there. So Again, this is around the building site, and you can clearly see some cracking on the edge and tyre marks, which explain, why this is happening. And that's really interesting. Look at the driveway; it's made out of concrete, and that's cracked up really badly as well. So I think that gives you a good idea of, if there's cracking here, vehicles are the cause, possibly not poor construction or cycle traffic. So anyhow, hopefully that's provided some context for you, and I won't have to go back and revisit Forrest Street again.